Hi, I'm Shannon from houseimprovements.com, and in this video we're going to show you a little bit more about shingling. We're going to actually deal with shingling the entire roof at this point. Hopefully you've watched some of our other videos to do with shingling that kind of get you up to the stage we're at, and if you haven't, just check out our channel and look for them. We've already done a video showing you how to get started as far as getting the starter strip on and your first few rows underlayment, which is this product here. So now we're just going to deal with actually getting started on the actual bulk of the roof. So we're using a laminated architectural shingle, as you can see here. I'm just going to reiterate a few things that I already maybe mentioned if you did watch the other videos. Our nailing area is going to be right in the tar strip. We're using 6 nails per shingle, and we've also got to stagger our rows. We want a minimum of 6-inch stagger from the joint below. So here's our joint in this row. So in the row up above here, we don't want to be either way of that unless we're at least 6 inches away. We've got our underlayment on, like I spoke about. We've got all our metal flashings on. They're there. What we don't have is, in this case, we're going to use a double layer of 15-pound felt on the rest of the roof that you can see up there. And we aren't going to do that until we kind of get to that area because of the wind today. So we've got a good chunk here done with the grip guard underlayment, and we're going to just work with that for right now. So to get things started, we're going to use an air nailer. Now, I would highly recommend this if you're going to do your entire roof. You can hand nail it, that's fine, but it's going to speed things up quite a bit even if you have to rent a nailer and a compressor. So do that. We're using coils of nails. I believe these are 1 inch for this nailer. Yeah, they're about 1 1/8 inches, I think, actually. Going to use some safety glasses, obviously. If you're hand nailing, you want to use about 1.5 inch nails at the shortest, just to give you your fingers a little bit of room so you aren't banging your fingers all the time. So we've got that. You're going to need a couple different knives usually. There is a shingling. Now we've just got a utility knife where you add the blades into it, and you can buy blades. I'll put it down here where you can see better. They've got a hook on it, so you can hook that hook right in the shingle and cut. These don't work as good on the laminated shingles. They do work really well on 3-tab shingles if that's what you're going to do. On the laminated shingles, I just tend to use a standard utility knife blade and turn the shingle upside down and cut on the back side. And we will show you that a little bit later in the video as far as how to cut it. You're going to need a tape measure, chalk line, a couple things like that to get yourself started. You're still going to need your hammer as well. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I pre-cut some starting shingles for us so that we get that stagger that we want to keep our joints from lining up. So we've already got the starter strip and the first row of shingles on, which I said you can see in our other video. This is a full shingle. What I'm doing is I'm doing my stagger of 8 inches. So I just took the next 4 rows and I just increased how much I cut off by 8 inches every time so that I get a nice step pattern. One of the other things we have to make sure we do is also add kind of a starter strip along that edge just to give a double layer at the edge. And that there is just going to overhang your metal trim by whatever you decided to do, 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch when you did your starter strip. Okay, so I'm just going to go and tack that on right now just before I forget. In fact, I might just hand nail that. We'll get it in position. And it just butts down. You can see I'm pulling back this layer. It butts down to the one underneath. I just can't reach that other one without climbing right up there, but I'll get it after. Okay, so once you have that on, the way you line these up as far as for the exposure that you have, you can see you've got these lines, these cuts on this type of shingle right here. So I want to put the bottom edge of my next row right level with that, and then also flush out here to the end of the starter strip. Okay, so I just slide that right down, right where I Want to see it lined up. And remember, I want to nail right in the tar strip, tar area. Okay, so I usually get the two ends nailed in first, and then I'll fill in my nails in between. Okay, just like so. Okay, and as the sun hits these, they're going to eventually heat down and stick down right to the row underneath it. That's what all the strips of tar are for, to seal it right up. So now my next one, I just want to do the same thing. Try to get out of your way so you can see. Like so. And I've got this little guy here. Okay, so that gets me 4 rows started, and it's full shingles after that until we get all the way to the other end, or an obstruction or something like that. I think what I'll do, I'll just get a few regular shingles on here, just so you can get an idea what I'm doing. But all I'm doing is I'm taking the next one, butting it tight against here. I'll nail my two ends once I have it lined up tight here and lined up on the bottom. Nail two ends, fill in the middle, and I'll just keep doing that. Usually I'll take 3 or 4 rows along, courses along as I go. Get to the other end, cut them, come back, basically start over, kind of typewriter type. If any of you are old enough to know what typewriters are, from one side to the other. Really doesn't matter which end of your roof you start from, but I always try to start at one end and just keep coming from that end all the time. Depending on your shingles, a lot of times what cuts off down at that end, you'll be able to reuse as a starter down here, or modify the length of it to use it down here. With this type of shingle, there's very little waste. We do have another video explaining how to figure out what you need for products and your quantity of your shingles and all that, so check that out for your estimating. I think that's all I can really tell you right now. Oh, the other thing, I'm working off a scaffold. Typically, you're probably going to be working from up on top of the roof. So you're going to be right up here. Kind of the first few rows, you're going to be working upside down. Once you get enough rows done that you can comfortably work standing on the new shingles, you want to be very careful, especially in the heat of the day, that you're not twisting and grinding your toes and heels and stuff, because you're just going to take life off your brand new shingles that you're laying. So you want to kind of walk around fairly carefully without causing any damage, and it does get difficult if it gets quite hot during the day. Okay, but because I've got the scaffold down here, and it'll just make it easier for you hopefully to see a little bit what I'm doing, I'm going to do the first few rows from down here. Okay, so I just kind of use my fingers to kind of feel what I need there. I pushed it over tight. And you'll kind of get a rhythm as you get going along. Oh, the first few rows always take a little bit of extra playing around until you kind of get comfortable, especially if you're not used to being on the roof and you're working turned around like I was showing you upside down. So you're just trying to space those nails out. Bring these ones in about 1 inch from the ends and space the other ones out fairly evenly. I think I can reach one more. It doesn't hurt to go online and check out the manufacturer's instructions in case there's any particular things to do with your roof slope, the region that you live, any extra little things that you might have to do for your area a little bit differently than I am. You may not need the double paper, you might only need 1 layer of paper, that sort of thing. We've got a double row of the grip guard, ice guard, just because of the low slope of our roof and the climate conditions that we have here. Okay, so I'm just going to add an extra 1 or 2 on the end of each one of these. Now at that point, because we started out with a real small one, my next row up here would be a full shingle again. And I'm not sure if you can see this nail. Not sure if you can zoom in enough there to tell that's on a little bit of an angle. Try to get your nails going in as flat and true as you can. They'll just have better holding power. Okay, so I'm just going to throw a few on here. One thing that will help you, obviously, is some help. If you can get some buddies to come over and give you a hand, it'll speed things up immensely. So if you've got the people, it's kind of nice if you can have one guy just nailing, one person bringing the shingles and kind of getting them roughly in place, and even another person cutting. It'll just speed things up so much quicker. It's amazing how much of a difference that'll make. So I think I've explained as much as I can as far as, you know, getting yourself started on this end. I'm going to work myself along the roof till we get to the other end, and then I can show you, you know, how to cut the ends off and finish up. We've got a plumbing vent coming through the roof here. It'll be up about 4 or so rows. So when we get to that, we can deal with that as well. Okay, so we've got over here to where we're at a plumbing stack vent coming through the roof, and we've got to install a piece of flashing over top of it. So this, after we get going, is just simply going to fit down over that pipe and down to get sealed to the roof. We need to come through here though before that goes on. We've got to come through here one more row, it looks like. But as you can see, I'm going to have to cut this upper area just to get around that. And it doesn't have to be real exact. So I'm just going to get myself a couple marks, find my right knife. I'm just going to use a knife and butt it over to the end of the row where I left off. And I just got to get a couple marks here on the width up here. I don't have to make a real tight fit here because that rubber is going to go over all of it. And I need to know how far down the shingle I'm going to come. So I'm just going to measure from my edge, because I know the bottom of my next row's got to line up here. So I know I've got to come up about 9 inches. And it might be easier for you to see if I just work right here. Okay, so I've got to come up 9 inches. Here's my 2 little cuts that I just made up there. And I've got to come down to about that. So what I'll do, I'm just going to cut there. So it's much easier to cut on the back side, but because I've got it marked out on the front, I'll just cut here. I just want to take and get rid of that piece, so we'll just try that. Should be fine. So again, I'm butting over that way where we left off. You can see we're clearing that. It's not rolling up against it or going to cause any trouble once the heat expands these shingles a little bit. So I can nail this. Okay, so I've got that nailed. I'm going to do one more full one here just so it doesn't cause any issues. Okay, so now we're at the point that this boot here can go on, or this flashing can go on. You want to get to the point, you know, when this sits on there, this is going to stick out, and you want it to make sure it's covering the glue, the tar strip, and coming down onto the face part of the shingle a little bit. And then the next row will you know, will just basically come up to it. So we're low enough here. If we went one higher, what would happen then? Just for an example, when this is on there, it's going to sit about like that, and these are going to lap on just like that. So some of this will be exposed on the bottom. That's what we want. If we had gone one more row of shingles through there, that would mean this would be way up here. Again, that's still acceptable because it's still covering about half of this face of this boot, but there's no need to leave that much of it exposed. So in this case, and everyone's going to be a little different, right? Because it just depends how how your courses naturally come up to it. But in this case, I'm going to put the boot on right here where it is. Okay, so we also need to use some roof cement. So just kind of set that on there, give yourself an idea of how far this comes. We don't want the roof cement underneath there so close to the edge that when you stick it down, it's going to ooze out all over the place. We want it to be back in there a couple inches so that it just seals up nice, but yet doesn't make a mess, leave it all exposed. So we can come down, we're just going to simply tar. This is a tube I'm reusing, so hopefully it opens up here for me. Okay, so I got a fresh tube of the roofing cement. We'll put a nice generous bead down the side here. Okay, so we got that all there. Set this somewhere so if it oozes out a bit, it isn't gonna make a mess on you. Okay, so now this boot can go on. It should be a nice tight snug fit around here. You can get the appropriate size to fit the vent you're dealing with. Come on. Okay, and you can just double check that your tar is going to be far enough back. Should be good. Push that down into that tar there like that. Just get it straight with the run of the shingles. You can either measure it or eyeball it, so it looks straight when you're down on the ground. You may not even be able to tell, but from down there. And then you are gonna have a couple of exposed nails here. So we're gonna nail here. Get a few nails here. This is why you want to always have a few hand nails too, because you're gonna have stuff like this to deal with. One in that corner, one in the center. They actually have small dimples in this one, kind of indicating where they think that you should nail. So not all manufacturers will have that on there, but you can see we've got a nice tight fit around here. You want this rubber lip curling up there, so if water, rain, or snow or whatever comes down here, it just naturally makes its way up and off of there. Okay, so we've got this all nailed nicely down there. I've got some ooze here. I'm gonna hide underneath there. We'll get rid of this. I guess I still need that. Okay, so we've got that. We've got the flashing down there. Now we've got to kind of continue on with our shingling, but we're gonna have to do some cutting again. So we'll see what we've got to cut here with this one. Butt it over there where we need to be. Now what we want to do, and many of these flashings will have a bit of a rib along there, and I like to use that as a bit of a guide. I don't know if you can really see it, it's pretty faint on here. We're going to come on there, I don't know what that is, 2.5 inches or so. Yeah, it's actually 2.5 inches. So we've got to cut this up and around there, and in fact the way ours works out, we can just make a straight cut right off of there. So I'll just do the same trick with my knife. Make sure we're tight down there. Just line myself up with that there, and I'm just going to give myself a little bit of a line there so that I can come down here and cut that off. I'm going to grab a square. Oh, I guess it's behind the cameraman as the camera bounces all over on the scaffold. Thank you. Okay, so Here's my little notch right there. I've got the shingle turned upside down. I've just got a normal, everyday OFA blade in there. The shingles are fairly warm from being in the sun. And after just a couple passes here, that should cut off quite nicely. Okay. I find these laminated shingles cut about the best using that method as opposed to the hook blade. The hook blade works good on single layer shingles, but these have a double layer in them. And it doesn't cut worth a hoot through there unless it's real hot out. So we'll just double check that that's going to work out. So our shingle, when it's all said and done, is going to sit something like that, and that's what we want. We're going to put a bead of tar under here and nail that on. Okay, and in fact I can nail this end like so. Get our little bit of tar and we'll put it back here. I like to put it right over the nails if I can. Again, don't want to come out too far to the edge. And then I come off the end there a little bit to keep any water that might drive up underneath that shingle from being able to get past it. Okay, so we're just like that. Get our flushness there that we wanted. And one there. Okay. So now the big thing to do is, because we cut some of that shingle off, in order to keep our stagger going kind of the same way we were, we actually need to know if that shingle was full length where it would have ended up being. So a lot of times I'll just lay that there as kind of as a gauge. This darn tar is gonna get me stuck in it sooner or later. I need another shingle. So we're still continuing along the course that we just put that shingle in. But this piece that we cut off, like I said, I use as a gauge. So I basically keep my stagger all the same. It's not quite as important on these shingles because as long as you're staggered, you're fine. On a 3-tab, you would definitely have to do this so that you keep your lines all lining up. So with that gauge, I can kind of see where I need to be here again on there. Cut that off. Now you could, if you wanted to, when we cut that one, you could have just notched it up and around. Basically there'd be nothing left up at the top anyways. So I just cut that one and this one right off. Whoops, I need this back as my gauge here. Not there. Oh shoot, I threw that piece down. The piece I cut off of there would have been in between here too. I guess I know that I did a... There, we should be good there. I should have kept my piece I cut off because I kind of needed to have that there. That's all right. Okay, so we got that. I can nail this other end just to keep it from moving on us. I'm going to tar this end. And our next row, which we actually haven't brought along here, would go right over this with a little bit of a notch in it too. Okay, I'm gonna have to bring one more row so we can finish this off. Okay, so I should have really left these little bits on up here to let the shingle lay nice. So I just cut a couple pieces of scrap in there. We've got our shingle cut to go around the top of the stack. So it's just going to go up and around. We're going to put a bead of tar around there. So I'm going to get rid of this before I get tar on me. Okay, so we can just bring that in Get our height right, butt it up tight to the other one. Right there. Once the sun hits that and everything sits down nice, should be good. Now I'm not going to do it right now because somebody will definitely walk in it or will drag a hose through it or something. When I'm all said and done, all the vents on here, any exposed nails, I'll go and just put a quarter-size dab of roof cement on those just to cover them up and seal those up so that there's no issues down the road. And other than that, we're pretty good. So this will allow any rain, snow, whatever will come in and drain away from there. If it does build up ice here or whatever and try to back up, we've got the tar there to try to stop that. So we should be good. So now we're around one of many obstructions in this roof, and we can just continue on. Okay, so these are just laying here. So we've come all the way down the roof here. So we've gotten to the point where we need to cut some of our end pieces. We've got our starter strip that goes up the edge here. We've got one of them on. So this is our guide. This is where we need to measure to. Okay, so you can do this two ways. You can either pull your tape out and measure it, or you can just lay the shingle butted where you need it to be and give yourself a little notch where you want to cut it, right? Now also, if you want to, if it's warm enough and everything works out for you, you could nail this down and cut this off right on the roof. I just find I get a cleaner cut if I take it over and cut it somewhere else. You could either have a piece of plywood up here to cut on or go up higher up the roof where you're not cutting the underlayment. But see if I can just do it here. Turn it a bit so you can see. So there's my little notch. And you see me cut a little bit already around the vent, so it's not like this is really any different. I've got the shingle flipped over. Okay, so you can see we're good there on our starter. Just get it sitting in place where we want it. Just like so. And every course is going to be the same thing. You just need to cut off your piece. Now this should work out to be likely a full, oh, well, we got really lucky there. Usually what would happen is you'd cut one, you have a full shingle, cut the little piece, full shingle, cut the little piece. Just so happened this third row ends up being, well, as close as I need it to being the exact length. So we can throw that one on. Seem to every now and again get one stubborn nail that wants to come out funny. Okay, so what I was saying is once you finish off one row, the nailer just doesn't want to stay sitting today, is you're going to have to add in one full shingle before you have a cut, generally. Just line her up. Try to avoid having pieces that are any shorter than, it'd be nice to be no shorter than 6 inches. So you definitely don't want to have any slivers if you can avoid it. The nice thing with these laminated shingles, if it happened to work out that, I got right out here and on some of my rows, maybe I got a, I don't know, 1.5 inch or 3 inch piece. What I could do is my last full one, I could cut a little bit more off of it to allow me to put a bigger piece in. Just whenever you do that, take a look below and make sure you aren't getting too close to another joint. Like here you can't see. What I was speaking about before about offsetting the joints is, here's one joint, the course below it is over here. We've got our 8 inches. And the same thing here, right? Those are our 3 joints. Okay, so you don't want to get them like this. It's a little hard to tell on these shingles because of the design of them. It looks like there's joints everywhere, but there really isn't. Okay, so now you'd cut that piece, full shingle, cut whatever piece, so on. I think you get the idea. So we've got a fair bit to continue on here with. I think next we're going to roll out a piece of the first piece of the paper and get that all stapled on. Hopefully the wind doesn't tear it off on us, and then we can continue on up the roof. Okay, so we're rolling out our first row of this 15-pound paper, felt paper, and we've overlapped it down onto the other underlayment here. We're coming down 17 inches. Every row of paper we're going to lap by 17 inches, and that's because of the width, and that will end up so that up there we've got a double layer of paper on everything, which is what we need in our area for this type of roofing. So we've started the piece down at that end, tucked underneath that white aluminum flashing. I'm not sure if you can see that way down there. We've got it tucked under here, under this trim, and stapled. I just threw a bundle on there to keep the wind from getting under it. And then my help is just going to kind of grab the roll there and keep rolling back across the roof and just pulling it one way or the other to try to get as many of these little wrinkles out of it as we can. And I'll just come along behind them and staple it down. I'm just doing rows of staples about every 4 feet, and just pull the bottom a little bit. And we'll just continue right across the roof, just like that. You'll have to just keep going that way. That's all right. We've got to a point where, in order to keep the wrinkles out, we must have got going a little bit crooked. What we're going to actually do is cut the paper, overlap it by 6 inches onto itself, and just get ourselves re-straightened out so that we don't. Right now, what's happening, if we kept going, the roll is going to cover our shingles that we already did. So we're just going to stop right about there. And like I said, I'm just going to cut that. We'll restart ourselves and go right to the end. Okay, so we've skipped ahead here a little bit, as you've obviously noticed. We just ran out of filming time last night, so I continued on and got a good chunk of the roof done last night. We've kind of got this corner up here where I'm sitting to finish off. And there's a few things we want to show you yet. Where we left off just a few seconds ago in the video was we were rolling out the paper. I had talked about lapping it the 17 inches in our case to get the double layer. So you can see our laps here in the paper so that it's double thickness. The other side of the roof was already shingled, so we just ran the last row of paper up as high as it could, doubled it up, and wherever it ended up down here, it ended up. So you can see these two are kind of close together, but it doesn't matter. So basically, to finish the video off here, we're just going to finish shingling out most of this corner so that we can get up to an area here and show you how to install a roof vent. And then we're going to go back to the far end of the roof and show you just how to figure out how to finish your last row and to do your ridge cap. Okay, so we've got up to a height here where we're at one of the roof vents for ventilation, and I'm just going to show basics about going around it. We're actually going to have a more basically in-depth video on this too that you can look for if you want a little bit more information. And on that video we'll go into actually figuring out how many of these roof vents you need for the size of home you have. So, but this is just a quick demo. I've kind of got the shingles all pre-cut. We've got an existing hole here that we're going into, so you know, that's what we're using there. We're using a plastic ridge vent, and yeah, so I need to go, I can't really go here because I want this to be exposed above the one row of shingles. So we're going to go one more row of shingles, and I've got it cut out for the hole. So we'll just nail this one on. Okay, and then our vent basically is going to sit on there like that, but we need to seal around it as well, or under it I should say. So we want to make sure that our tar is in underneath, half an inch to an inch away from the edge, so it doesn't just squirt out all over and make a mess. So get yourself some marks so that your vent is sitting where you want it, and you have a bit of an idea where the tar needs to go. Just run a nice generous bead around there. Line our vent all up where we want it to be. I like to hand nail these just so I don't over nail it too tight. Like I said, we'll go into more detail on the other video. Need one more shingle over here. Shingles are getting nice and warm now. Okay, so that's the basics going around the roof vent. Okay, so down on this far end of the roof, we're up high enough to show you kind of the last row and the ridge cap. So to start off with, we need one more row of shingles here. This is the side we're working on. And the reason I know that is this is your ridge cap, and I'll show you how to cut it here in a minute. It basically sits on here like this. So obviously we don't want this row of tar showing, and we need a little more overlap than what we've got there. So we need to come up with one more row. So it gets lined up just the same as all the other ones. Flush to the end and flush to these notches on the bottom. Nailed just the same. One more for good measure. And if you're using a vented ridge, which we aren't here, but if you were, then you will have to leave your shingles back. I think it's 2 inches each way of the peak. And as well, you're going to have the board or the plywood cut out as well, but just depending on your ridge vent, that'll determine some of that. So if you're using that type of vent, then you'll have to adjust accordingly, but in our case we aren't. Okay, so you can see by putting that last row up here, my ridge cap will now cover this tar strip as well as this one on the other side. Okay, so we know that we've come up far enough there. In my case, there's no problem with just flipping this little flap over the top. I'm going to do one more here. Okay, like that. Like that. Okay. So you just continue that all the way along on your roof. Now, if I was completely done this roof on the whole length of it, what I would do is I would determine a line on either side of the roof and snap a chalk line from one end to the other just to keep my ridge nice and straight. Your rows of shingles likely will be fairly straight, but they might be out a little bit. So just if you want to do that to stay nice and true, you can do that, or you can just follow this line here, whichever you want to do. I can't really snap a line now because we're not finished now at that end. I'm just going to do a few here just to show you what to do. Now, cutting these ridge caps, whoops, I got to find the right knife. There's a special blade. We talked about it early on, I believe, in the video. It's got these hook blades in it for roofing. Okay, your lumber store or your big box store is going to have those, and these particular ones fit in any utility type knife. So for the ridge cap, you're going to use 3-tab shingles. There are special shingles you can buy, again, that are for ridge caps. They might be a little more decorative. They might have these corners taken off or whatever, but basic old 3-tabs are going to still do the same trick for you. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your 3-tab shingle, and obviously it gets its name because it has 3 tabs, right? So it's got these 2 openings in it, and as well on the very corners there's half of that opening there as well, to give you a bit of a guideline. But you're going to take your hook knife, watch your legs and arms and fingers and everything, you're going to hook it in there, and you're going to pull it back at a bit of an angle, so you're cutting back maybe about 2 inches towards the top. This is the side of the shingle that's going to be seen. Okay, so you're going to get 3 ridge caps out of every 3-tab shingle, and each one usually covers about I think they cover about 6 inches or so of distance each tab. So typically one shingle is going to get you 1.5 feet of coverage on your ridge cap. And you can see they don't have to be perfect. The idea is just to get rid of that back there. So now the problem, if you don't angle them back like that, what happens is when you fold it around the edge, you're going to see this corner out here. So we're just cutting it back so that you can not see that, and it doesn't look bad. Okay, so I can get rid of this. You're going to need to use longer nails because we're going through, you could be going through 2 or 3 layers of shingles once you get up here. This row might be folded over and then this one again. So you want to make sure you got long enough nails. I'm using 2.5-inch nails. When you're placing your ridge cap, also you want to think about which way your winds usually come from. So in my case, most of my winds usually come from the west, northwest over here. So I want to start at the opposite end of the roof. And the reason is that because you're going to put the cap on here like this, and if I had them coming from the other end like this, it's just easier for the wind to get underneath them. Now also, if you want to, you can put a dab of tar on each one. Typically I don't find that it's really a huge issue. Once it gets a few days of sun, they get folded down and stay down. But if you want to put a little dab of tar, once I get one on here, I'll show you where you'd put it. Okay, so take your first shingle. Cutting these will also be a lot easier if the shingles are warm. So just let the bundle sit out in the sun a little bit, and it'll just make them softer and more pliable to cut and work with. Now the camera might want to move just a little bit closer to the roof. Also, you're going to be dealing with working right near the edge of the roof, so you've obviously got to be careful that you don't lose your balance and fall over the roof. So for right now, for the few I'm doing, I'm just going to follow this line here. So just give them a little bit of a, don't fold it right in half, but just give it a little bit of a bend so that it naturally just sits nice on the roof. Line it up flush with the other shingles that you did here already. Take your longer nails, and you want to be either in this tar or just behind it. Hammer it in. Come over here, just let the shingle lay over nice over the roof. And I'm coming in, I don't know, I'm about 2.5, 3 inches or whatever from the very, very edge line here. Actually, I'm probably a little bit far on that one there. I wasn't paying close enough attention. I was talking too much, like usual. Okay, so now your next one, you can see we've got this tar strip here. And as you noticed on all the other shingles, they've kind of got a design where they've got the silver gray and then they've got a dark accent area. These kind of have the same thing. They've got the dark accent area here. So I like to leave a little bit of that showing, but be sure that I'm covering up that tar strip. So I'll just lay it on there. Same thing. As you go along, just make sure you're covering these tar strips on each side of the roof every time. So I'll just do a few of those there, but I think you get the basic idea. I mean, if you want to measure each one out, whatever, I wouldn't usually get too concerned about it. If somebody's going to climb up on your roof or come and complain to you because you don't have them evenly spaced completely, and they can tell that from the ground, and it doesn't bother you, who cares? Okay, so you just continue along. Like I said, every one of those 3-tab shingles will do about 1.5 feet of ridge. Yeah, we're about 18 inches right to there. So, okay, and you just continue all the way along. If you had a ridge, or sorry, had a cottage-style roof or a hip roof, there's a bit of an example actually. If the camera spins around, you can kind of see, because you're coming up on the corners, just because we got the opportunity to kind of show it. You can see how on a hip roof, you'd actually have a ridge cap coming up each corner, and then typically you wouldn't have that extra vented roof area on the top, but the corners would come up and then there'd be a strip along whatever you've got for the center. In fact, this neighboring house is maybe a better example. Sorry. Yeah. So you can see his ridge cap comes up each hip and then across the top for the length that he has, and done. So that has it for our finishing up our how to shingle a roof video. We've got a whole bunch of videos dealing with roofing now, and they'll be up right away, or they will be here already existing. You can find them on our channel. But this one specifically was just dealing with the roofing. We quickly touched on some of the work around some of the vents and flashing, but we do have some other videos that go into a little bit more detail. In fact, one covering a valley as well, so, and some step flashing. So just look for all our other shingling related videos on our YouTube channel. If you have any questions about them, or maybe we've missed something that you need specifically for help on your roof, just go to the forum and post your question, and I'll be sure to help you out from there. If you want to watch us as well on see what's kind of going on, any video releases, that sort of thing, you can follow us on Twitter or Facebook. You can check out our Patreon campaign, and just keep in touch with us in all those different ways of social media. So hopefully this helped you out in your project. Let us know, in fact, if it did or didn't, and have a good time and enjoy your roofing project.